At the end, call me, someone give me, I need have someone come get me a little bit more talk. Sorry about that, sir. Go ahead and continue.
That's all right. So anyway, I kind of got the impression from going to different places throughout my career that they would talk a good game, even in defense space, but they necessarily wouldn't be doing kind of like the intelligence gathering and the threat modeling that they would need to be doing. And I've only run into that in a few places. And in fact, last night I sat in on a black hat dinner for a vendor who brought all these alleged luminaries to talk about their problems with other people who are using their product. And only one guy in the room was actually doing threat modeling and intelligence the right way. And he and I could talk, but the rest of them are all like clueless as to what was going on. And they had, you know, China, they had Anonymous attacking them, and various and sundry companies with various and sundry problems. So, you know, I think something like this framework would help them a great bit. For some of you, it may seem very low end. You know, maybe you're doing this. Maybe you're not. I'm finding more and more companies aren't doing it. Maybe they're not thinking about it in this way. So what the fuck am I talking about? Attribution is all the rage, but does it really make you any more secure? Not necessarily. How do you know your attribution's right in the first place? Are you an intelligence agency? Unless you get a call from NCIS that says, hey, we got this data, it was in Chinese hands, physically in Chinese hands, then you can say, oh, the Chinese hacked this. Or maybe it was passed to them. But you're not going to be able to definitively say that it was China. You can always have a compromised box. You never know. What I want to get out is how to collect actionable intelligence and how to put that into an InfoSec setting. There's a problem in our industry where more and more it's becoming militarized. You see it even in this presentation. There's militarized speak, OSINT, SIGINT, human, stuff that I've dealt with in the past, and it's becoming more the rage in the scene. But it may not really apply to what we do working for Krypt, let's say. You know. So no, really, what the fuck am I talking about? Attribution is mostly fucking pointless unless you use it intelligently. That's the key. So, problems I usually see, I've pretty much already covered that. You've got orgs that are in reaction mode only. You've got orgs focused only on attribution, so they can have blaming, shaming, whatever, it's an excuse. Or orgs that don't use any threat intel at all. And that would put them more toward the reaction mode. But I have seen places that are totally oblivious. No reaction mode, they don't know they've been hacked, they're clueless. And orgs misinterpreting the intelligence that they're getting. It's pretty common as well. So let's reframe the argument. Attribution today is a 180-degree process for the most part. I've seen in regular business. It's China, oh my God. Let's buy a product. Let's get a shiny blinky light thing. Attribution actually needs to be a 360-degree process, or a centric process, where you look at what's happened, you look at who's doing it, how they're doing it, what's going on, and then turn it back and say, okay, what about me is making them do this to me? So I came up with this intelligence framework. It's really not very in-depth. I'm still working on more of a paper or a framework to put out. But it's the use of telemetry and some attribution, technical reports and updates, pen testing and bone scans, forensics, psychology, sociology, and criminology, which you don't hear a lot in a lot of this sphere. You have to know what they're after, why they're after, how they're doing it, not just on a technical level, but their foibles. You'll hear a lot out of Mandiant about some of this stuff. They kind of go into it. And they do have people who are former intelligence people looking at this stuff and going, oh, I know this guy. And then they'll do the background work, do the OSINT, and they'll get this guy that's, like the guy that they found was posting on some bulletin board blog he had about how he loved, well, I forget what TV show it was like Prison Break. You know, that's good OSINT, and that's a good insight into this guy's mental picture, what he's doing and why he's doing it. He's getting paid. Is he a true believer? That's all the OSINT. So you use this to influence the executive comprehension level, technical controls, policy changes, security awareness, security posture, effective defenses. And that's it. You use all of these to look at your own environment to see what's wrong with it, how to fix it, and what the trending is. So the first principles are: know thyself, know thy adversary, understand thy adversary. Didn't mean to do that. And defeat thy adversary. Now, it's a misnomer for me to even say defeat. It was just for effect, really. I don't think we can ever defeat them. And I said this last night to that group of 20 people at this table, and it went over like a fart. If you don't go into business, into your work every day, just assuming that you're already compromised, you're fooling yourselves. I was the only like pen test guy at that table, and they didn't like that, especially the vendor didn't. So we use threat intelligence. I went and Googled threat intelligence. I just wanted a definition. I couldn't find one. There's no like Merriam-Webster. I think there's one of those common dictionaries for street language kind of thing, but it really didn't have anything good. So I came up with this. It's the collection analysis of technical and other data within and without an organization to determine the threat to your environment. That's threat intelligence. Threat intelligence, a lot of times I hear, is reversing malware. You know, it's kind of one-dimensional. It really does depend on what you're doing. If you're a reverser, that's all you do, that's your threat intelligence. But you gotta have a bigger picture. You gotta have other people in there. You can't just do one thing and expect to know what's going on. So, collection. You've got technical threat intelligence, which covers your internal sphere. It's understanding the architecture that you have, involving security and the change control processes, performing vuln scans and penetration tests internally and externally, logging, correlation, and alerting, leveraging security metrics in defense in depth, incident reporting, and DFIR, of course. Now, this may seem standard to you, but how many of you are actually taking all that and then generating an actual report that goes to the board or goes to the CEO? One. Anyone else? Anyone else seen it happening anymore? Just one. So, technical threat intelligence for external. So you've got your O days on sale, you've got your O day +1, you've got your vulnerability alerts, patches, your IDS, your firewall logs, your DMZ logs, and leveraging as many security feeds as you can. So, in this, when I talk about O-Day, I'm talking about doing a Brian Krebs. You gotta have somebody out there actually going on these sites and knowing what's going on. Not just reactively getting an email saying, oh fuck. Then you use OSINT. OSINT is the new flavor of the day. I've been doing it for a while. Open source intelligence before it became popular outside the intelligence community. Looking at the external threats, you got your Facebooks, your Pastebin, your IRC, underground bulletin boards, darknet, Twitter, and human sources. I cannot tell you how much importance can be laid on just talking to people, talking to the bad guys. In my outside, my work stuff, I do a lot of that dealing with jihadists. And so knowing how they think, knowing what they're talking about, it's very important to knowing what the threat picture is. You've got to do the same thing for your company. You know? If you don't have somebody doing it, maybe you want to do it yourself, just kind of go out there and make a cutout, look around, get a feel. I know a lot of people still go to IRC just to sit there. Attribution. I really am loath about all the crap that goes on around attribution lately. It's like the ABT and attribution are two bugaboo words I really despise. But it's the what, the why, the how, the who, and the where. That's what you gotta know. So, what? What was done? Was it data theft? Did they steal money? Did they take IP? Or did they take PII or SPI? You know, what kind of threat are they? What are they looking to take from you? What are they going to do with it when they take it? Is it something that they're going to sell on the black market? Is it something they're going to use against you later? Did they DDoS? Did they just come along and deface you? Did they actually pwn you and then RMRF your shit? Or did they hack you and then place something on your site to make you look bad? It's happening. It's not just shaming by, you know, taking your site down and removing everything. Disinformation is the new thing. When I was at DEF CON 2 years ago, I think it was, on that panel, I said that with Anonymous and all this stuff, it's all going to be about disinformation. The government's going to use it, Anonymous is going to latch onto it, already doing it, and it's just a melee. You don't know what's real anymore. So if something happens where your site is defaced in a very subtle way, kind of like Adrian Lamo did to the New York Times, you could do it in a way that really makes them look bad, and reputational loss can be huge. How? Was it malware? Was it phishing with malware? Or phishing with just like, hey, put your credentials into the screen? Was it physical access? Was it ODA? Exploitation of common vulns? Was it low-end malware? You know, common Russian crimeware crap? Was it Chinese? Was it Chinese that was so bad that you really had to look at it, you know, just once and say, oh, you know, just delete. People still fall for that shit too. Exfiltration methods and locations, operating methods and habits. So on that last one, Mandy does a lot of that stuff. They'll talk about the operational methods, the habits that these guys have, and they'll be tracking it back, and they can get individual actors. Why? What were the motives for the attack? Were they stated or not? Did Anonymous say, I'm going to fucking take you down, I'm going to make you chained? Or did they just come out of nowhere? One of the people at the dinner last night, Anonymous, have been hacking the shit out of them over Monsanto. They're not even Monsanto, they're just sort of affiliated with them in a general way, but Anonymous is just locked onto them. It's like, hey, look, shit's open, let's just deface. And the thing is, they actually told them they were coming, and yet they still did it, because they had so much stuff out there they didn't know about, and they didn't have a security posture. Was it financial gain? That's kind of hard to tell sometimes. If you are tracking back and you actually see your data being passed on for Bitcoins, then you know it's financial. If it's credit cards, obviously, recent. Were there political motives? Anonymous, others? Was it a random action? Was it just target of opportunity? Target of ease? Who? Individuals? Non-state actors? Nation state? Or teenagers? Rivals? Chaotic actors? Anonymous, anyone again? I mean, actually, Anonymous can be fit into all but non-state, or all but like a state actor. But even then, you've got states now using disinformation. They say it's Anonymous, it was actually a state. It was China. I don't know. Where? The regions of cybercrime? Was your data being exfiltrated to Romania? Usually that's Russian crimeware, stealing your credit cards. Tie that back to what they took, if it's credit cards or personal data, yeah, it's probably them looking to scam your money. Commercial proxies, anonymized VPN, cutouts, which is basically anonymized, VPS VPN, but you can also set up a whole identity and just have it go back to that if you're really that interested in doing it. Nation state stuff. Compromise process. So you've got a lot of vectors, even looking at them in depth, unless you actually physically own that box, what can you say? You can't say for 100% sure anyone did anything, right? You only have a good guess. And that's what the attribution problem is. You have a good guess, unless somebody from Leo comes and says, here's your data, we got this guy, he had it in his hands, and he works for this company or this country, which I've seen happen. So analysis, the importance of analysis. Yes, sir, Mr. President, sir. Iraq has weapons of mass destruction, and that yellow cake from Nigeria is a slam dunk. Everyone remember that? That's a CIA director. Former. The brownie of the CIA directors. Technical analysis. So you've got technical intelligence reports. You take all your analysis, you develop reports. The security state of your technical environment, the security landscape in the wild, successes and failures of your technical measures, successes and failures of the adversary against you, and you process that. So then you get to processes, your processes in your organization. Are they working? Are they not? You know, processes in place, breaks in the process, successes in process that actually mitigated attacks. Don't look just at the negative, look at the positive. See what worked. And then OSINT. This is a more soft field. You know, threat reports on actors, current trends in attacks, current trends on targets, threat actor information that shows intent. Let me go back. So all of this stuff is really subjective. It's looking at your open source intelligence, maybe having human assets, maybe just being in IRC, darknet, seeing who's talking. It's really more, and there's a slide later, it's called rumor, which is rumor intelligence. You know, what are people saying? But you've got to take all that into account and analyze it and give it your best guess. And really, here's the thing. All of this stuff, all intelligence work, it's like that scene in Patriot Games where they bring Jack Ryan into the room where they're showing the actual raid, where they're killing the guys in North Africa. And he's like, oh fuck, what did I do? Well, the Admiral says it. It's like, you made your best guess. You used all the information you had, and you made a decision. And that's what you gotta do. So after that, it's up to, other than the technical means, it's up to management to make decisions. And even on those technical means, they may not sign off on risk of doing things. You could say something's a risk, and they'll say, well, it'll break the business, can't do it. Face that every day. So in attribution, you're looking at the locations, the originations, the actors who may be doing it, the context of why they're doing it, and what they are after, and how they're doing it. So you take all this and you put it into an intelligence product. This is the report. Your goal in intelligence reporting for InfoSec is much the same as it is in any other intelligence organization. You're seeking to show threats internally and externally. Technical reports on your security posture, status of your technical defense measures, your likelihood of compromise per vulnerability, standard stuff that we do every day as Blue Team. Current adversaries and how they've succeeded in the past, current adversaries and how they've failed, and methods used and the compromises, your DFIR. And then you take the attribution reports, you know, attack vectors, types of actors, goals of the attack, locations, DFIR, do your OSINT, vectors in the wild, RUMIT, your rumor intelligence, your human, and your tech-in. Tech-in is new in a way. It's all of those technical measures that we do every day as Blue Team to ensure that we have patching, ensure that there's a vulnerability scan, and all that stuff. We're putting it all together to provide context, an overall picture. generating that whole picture of your environment, the environment outside, and who's after you, whether it be just regular crimeware, whether it be nation state, whether it be chaotic, and giving that to your superiors, who may just be clueless. And you know, this is to say that you can even get something like this off the ground in your organization. A lot of companies are going to look at what I'm talking about and go, no, we don't have people who are looking to take us out like that, or we don't have the money for this, we don't have the time. So this all leads to response. And the first thing on response, everybody's talking about hack back. I have one word. I know there are some people over at Caesars right now talking about, I feel pain in my head about their sales of what they can do. We're gonna go get that shit back for you. It's too late, it's already out. Horse is out, gone, barn's on fire. Look at your own environment. Don't go after them. So, you've got, once again, it should be a 360-degree approach. Look at what's happening, look at yourself, understand the attacks, understand who's using them and why, understand your weaknesses, and leverage the adversary's methods to defeat them. So, in that, I broke it down into basic and advanced responses. You'll see the advanced response next, but so you got basic stuff. You know, use the data to strengthen your defenses. When you get a pen test, what do? You go fix the problems that you saw. If it's process, you go to the people and you say, look, process is broken. Somebody put in a simple password and help desk said, we'll make it non-expiring. That'll be great. Process broken. Determine weak points in your defenses. Pen testing, vulnerability scanning, SE. Correct your processes. Very simple. Correct the technical problems. And then be ahead of the curve and be proactive. Too many places are in reaction mode only. So then, once you've got that stuff out of the way, and you're actually doing that on a recurring basis, go to the advanced response. Active defense. No, not hack back. And really, there is a difference between active defense and hack back. Using disinformation, using honeypots, using tar pits. All of these. You can put that stuff out there, let them do what they want. Have a segment that says super secret squirrel shit you want, and let them do whatever they want to it, find out what they're doing. Give you time to react and stop them from going elsewhere. So the conclusion. Pretty much, I'm just saying that we're all a hair on fire. We're all reactionary. I know it's a common thing everywhere. Very few places have I been, other than like maybe a Lockheed or a GE or some intelligence agencies, are being a little more subtle about it, and they're looking at the bigger picture. We as corporate security people need to be doing the same kind of thing. And what you got to do is get the buy-off from your management to at least have one person doing some of this stuff for intelligence. And then do your due diligence. You know, take a look at what's going on and try to paint a picture. So you can give it to your management. They may not get it, but your engineers and your network people probably will. And certainly, if you can point out where the financial aspects go. You know, one of the things that came up last night in this dinner was, you know, having to scare executives. And I agreed. I said, yeah, you know, out of all the years of pen testing, I had to scare executives into doing stuff. You know, I went to one bank in particular that did not want to talk to me, the executives. CIO, CEO, CFO, they're all like, fuck you, we don't care. Well, I went, I did my pen test, and I turned around and I said, you know what, these guys are assholes, I'm going to do the extra benefit. And I created dossiers on each and every one of them. Their families, where their kids went to school, their patterns of behavior, satellite photos, all this shit. I did total footprint of them. And when I presented the report, there were, you know, 3 or 4 manila envelopes, and I walked away. I heard, like a day later, from IBM, they were not happy. They didn't like that. But it made a point. Years later, I found out through somebody else that they remembered that, and they made a lot of changes after that. Because not only could I do that to them, but you could steal $20 million from them in a very simplistic manner without the government knowing. So, you know, it's a big picture, and you got to look at it all in order to understand the threat matrix. Nickerson says it a lot. He said it a few years ago. I don't know if it was B-Sides or somewhere else. I think it was Bruges, in Brucon, that, you know, his pen testing method is, how can I burn your house down? How can I burn your company completely? And that's what you got to do. I agree with him 100%. Some of these guys are too busy fiddling with their knobs on their brass boats. They're not paying attention to this. So maybe you got to use scare tactics. It's unfortunate, but it's true. So by using the intelligence framework, you can understand your security posture and improve it, understand the attacks carried out against you, understand the adversary's modus operandi, and proactively prevent attack, hopefully. But, I'll reiterate, you have to get buy-off from these executives. You have to have a focus on your own environment. And you have to remember you're on defense. A lot of people out there want to be red team. Ooh, I get to ride into town, fuck people over, and ride out again. I used to love that part of it too. Now I'm not in that position anymore. I got to deal with all the shit. And, you know, at least this makes it interesting, but it's important. This whole idea of hack back, I think it's all just red team nonsense mindset. And that's it. If you want to reach me, you can reach me here. And how much time do we have?
30 minutes.
30? Wow. Questions?
In a tweet after the Boston Marathon, you suggested that this could be an example of a standalone complex, like in Ghost in the Shell. Could you elaborate that a little, and what the defense, if any?
What it kind of turned out to be. These two kids, well, one guy and one kid, alienated themselves from our society in a way. We helped them a lot through just the nature of our society, but they went online on their own. There were a lot of stories about possibly there being some mom. Turned out to be not the case. They did this on their own. And it's that standalone complex idea of the laughing man.
Right.
Where one idea becomes sort of amplified in the net, and people latch onto it and start saying, I'm going to do that too. Either it's cool or, you know, whatever. And this is a problem with you know, jihadist terrorism now, and even AQ8P and Al-Malaham really kind of took that up and started saying, well, you Westerners have this magazine that gives you ideas, go do this. And the problem that they had originally was the Westerners were Western mindset. They weren't Eastern mindset. They weren't raised in the country necessarily. So it was harder to radicalize them. And that's what I meant by that. Any other questions, comments?
What are some of the tools that you use to help look into like that OSINT, other than looking at forums and IRC? Do you have anything in mind, or is that typically all there is?
Well, there's a lot of online tools you can use, like Court of Future, stuff like that, aggregating systems. Maltego is a big one. You can write your own transforms. You can use the transforms that are out there. I've been using it since they first put it out there, and I like it. But you got to remember, a lot of people are writing transforms now to use Maltego in threat intelligence gathering for attack, not only and defense, but I see it more for pen testing, where they're writing a transform and they're going out and they're looking for vulnerabilities in systems, they're looking for the footprint of an organization, they're looking for information to exploit. And that's more technical information. What I tend to be using it for most of the time is some of that technical, but a lot more of the social cues, looking at who's connected to who's talking to who. And that's both for this kind of work as well as the stuff that he was alluding to with jihadist terrorism. So there's a lot more legwork to it. You actually have to go to the links. You have to look at the pages. You have to say, okay, what are they doing? Who's talking to who, and why are they doing it, and when are they doing it? So there's a lot of elbow grease that goes into it, mental elbow grease.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I'm just curious, how do you sell your executive management on? Because it doesn't seem like such a key point of this whole program being successful.
Yeah.
Exercise. So,
Usually, it's more along the lines of even what I found last night at the table for this meeting, this dinner. 4 or 5 people out of that table, when they introduced themselves, all had their jobs recently given to them because there was a compromise at their company, and that company turned around and it was bad. It was a bad compromise. They lost data, they burned news, that kind of thing. And that's usually what it takes, unfortunately, for a lot of places to decide that they really need to do something about it. In defense base, it's defense base. They should be thinking about this already, and they're being forced to with the TCIE did. But even then, I've only seen a few really leveraging this. You got to have a lot of money if you're really good. I mean, there are teams of guys just doing rehearsal, like 5 or 6 at a time. There are fewer places with guys just surfing the net and going to talk to people and collating all that data and actually just being intelligence analysts. And what I've seen is a trend. Last year, Bank of America, which originally there was a slide about Bank of America, which I redacted because it just kind of died there. But they're a good example. When Anonymous started doing their thing, they decided that they would hire an intelligence team, a threat intelligence group. And what they did was they outsourced it. And all these guys from LinkedIn, all their LinkedIn information on those pages, and that they were doing Bank of America threat intelligence. And Anonymous caught onto it and found that they had put a whole bunch of their threat reports on internet-facing server without any crypto, without any controls around it. So they were like, woohoo! And they took it down, they put it up on torrent, I pulled it down, I started reading through all of it, and I was like, this is drivel. I mean, unless there's another portion that I'm missing, it was all like rumor. There were no reports. It was all just raw intelligence data, which wouldn't do you any good. And I'm not sure if they were actually doing any more. And actually, I'm going to be talking to somebody from B of A tomorrow and ask him, because he's in that area, and say, what were you thinking? It was much schadenfreude when that came out. So there are companies that are thinking about it. They're thinking about it in this vein, but getting buy-off is the big thing. And I'm not sure. Each CEO, each executive group, either they're into it, they understand what they're doing, or they don't care. They don't see an ROI. And that's the thing, what's the ROI in this is what you get. I can do all this stuff. What's my return on the investment? Well, I can say, got all this information, we're ahead of the curve, we know what's going on, we can, be agile about preventing attacks or responding to attacks. Sometimes you get that, dull look. Other times they get it. It's really up to the person and the company kind of a political atmosphere. Anyone else?
Or say you mentioned that this one company had outsourced their threat intel team and all that. If you were building a team for a company, how would you scale that team? Would it be just one guy and?
Well, if you have the money, the funds, then I would get at least one analyst who's looking at all the OSINT. You get hopefully one malware reversal guy. I mean, it depends on how big your company is too. I've seen $2 billion companies have like very little security. Never mind, this kind of stuff. So if you are a B of A and you have the money, they had, for analysts, my count was 5 or 6 as I went through all their emails and all their stuff from the dump. But that's not to say that they didn't have more. They were all reporting into a central person who was then reporting up to management. And that's, I didn't really go into that in this talk, but you really have to have an infrastructure of report to chains. Who's doing what, that's their only function. If you've got a SIM and you've got a big environment, then you should have at least 1 or 2 people just running that SIM because shit's going on all the time. But unfortunately, a lot of places just go, well, we'll buy the shiny thing and we'll put it in, and then you come up with some rules and have it ping us when there's something wrong. And then you're retasked to go do something else. And you have 5 other things you gotta do, but you're not paying attention to the SIM. And that SIM information, nowadays, like Splunk has a console now for security, where you're taking all that fire hose, you're just putting it into that console. Well, how many people do you need to look at that console? Should it be 24/7 SOC? Do you have a big environment? Maybe you should. Maybe you should have a 24/7 SOC. So if I were in that situation of a company that had the money, I'd be lobbying for it. I wouldn't say it's a showstopper, but it's not going to make your life easier.
All right, I appreciate it.
Anything else?
I apologize, I missed the middle of the discussion. Is there anybody out there you think is doing it right?
Yeah, in fact, you know, Lockheed Martin does a lot of good stuff. But last night, GE, I talked to this guy at GE, and they're doing stuff that was even beyond this. They developed some stuff that was looking at malware from an epidemiological aspect to determine who had coded it and what it was doing. It was really cool. Okay. And they had an infrastructure where they had a report to chain. Their defense base. They also had a corporate side. So, and that's a division that you have to deal with too. If you work in a company that's defense-based and has a corporate side, how do you deal with that? You know, you've got defense, they've got the secret squirrels, they're not going to talk to you, but it might be your side of the fence that actually gets compromised that leads to them. And unless you're working as a whole, you don't have the whole picture.
Okay. What about the military? Think they're doing it right?
Military or government? I think military and intelligence agencies are doing it. I think the NSA is the premier of that. They do a lot of this stuff, you know, and along with the more technical sifting and everything else we've seen in the news lately. But yeah, even the Air Force when they had a team was doing that. They came in my place and they had guys doing different things, and it was all, you know, tied together. They did the footprinting. They had, you know, typical red teaming, but there was more to it than that. And even like a Nickerson is doing this kind of stuff just on the red team side, where you got different guys doing different things. You know, put it all together. Anyone else? All right, and I shall let you go. My rant is over.
Who are the guys that raise your hand if you asked a question? Swag.
So is the schedule pushed today for the schedule pushed today for
Yeah, so everything's at 30.
So when did the Derp Strong recommend?
And now we
I don't know.
have.
I think I'm actually going to talk to Jack.
Can you
and see
tell
where
me on the radio? Oh, there's
Yeah,
security.
Everybody, USB drives?
It's a pleasure meeting you.
You gonna be in here for a bit? Cool. Can you make sure nobody steals that? They'll kill them.
I know it's kind of obtuse at times, so people are like, what the fuck is he talking about?
Yeah, I routinely laugh. See you.
I'm not sure it is.
Well, I aim to entertain it, so not just screech.
when they're like 30.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so, ready?
Only a visiting kind of.
I write
I did a bunch of bars up there, like,
Well, what's the view side? So I switched it over to this with his slides cut out. Question for you, sir. Oh, this is still recording, man.